You are now experiencing Less Than Fresh, a movie podcast. Less Than Fresh is a free-form discussion of movies and other related media, so it should be assumed there are potential spoilers hiding around every corner. Consider this your official spoiler warning. This podcast is rated not safe for work and contains mild cursing. So, if you're uncomfortable with that, then you can go yourself in the and then get the out of here. This podcast is designed to be taken auditorily or optically. If you've somehow ingested it orally or rectally, please induce vomiting immediately. Now, on with the show.
All right. It is
Hey.
It's time for another episode of Less Than Fresh, a movie podcast. I'm Jasper.
I'm Cassidy.
This is Cassidy. Hey, you introduced yourself for once.
Well, I figured I might actually start doing something as part of this for a change. I was about to say other than respond to you, but technically you introduced yourself first, so I did kind of respond to you by introducing myself next.
That's true. But this is episode 4 for those who have been keeping track. And so in our general naming convention, that means it's episode 4, No Country for Old Men. And
I resemble that remark.
You certainly do, Santa. Don't you need to be making toys? Like, you got to start cranking those out pretty soon.
All right, well, see you later.
No, stick around. You're gonna want to be in on this episode.
Actually, for once, I finally do. I mean, yes, I really do.
Ouch. That's this whole time he's been doing this against his will. This was actually just to pay off a massive bet that he lost. But Cassidy's gonna want to stick around for this. You're gonna want to stick around for this too, audience, because we are getting straight into it. No BS, no playing hee-haw with the fuck around gang or Gangs of New York or Fonzie and the Happy Days gang. Just no gangs involved, no fuckery involved. We are getting straight into the main topic of this video. I am so excited. You know, this is a video I've been wanting to do forever.
Yes, it is.
Like, even before the podcast was conceived, I had this idea baking for other new media related projects that we had going on in the past. So the basic premise is that when you have somebody who's prolific, who makes a lot of different movies, and they're divisive, some people like that person, some people don't like that person. I've always thought that, for example, somebody that I don't like very much as an actor, Nicolas Cage, I always thought that you could break down his movies into movies that are good movies, movies that are bad movies, movies that are good because of Nicolas Cage, movies that are bad because of Nicolas Cage, and movies that are good or bad in spite of Nicolas Cage. So, to that end, we have the folks over at tiermaker.com who provide the free tier lists that you've probably seen in 100 YouTube videos. This episode originally started out as being us doing a tier list, but as I got to looking around Tiermaker, I saw that they also had this alignment chart, which when you put these titles on the various pundit squares, if you will, makes a perfect chart for doing just this. So then we went through IMDb and got all of the Nicolas Cage movies you and I have seen, you and or I have seen, and put them here so that we can rank them good movie, bad movie, because of or in spite of Nicolas Cage.
It's a quick disclaimer, because this is Nicolas Cage we're talking about. This is only a fraction of the movies he's done. This is not comprehensive.
Yeah, out of all of the movies that we're going to be ranking in this episode, there was only one that I had seen that you had not seen. And so the bulk of this ranking is going to be done by you, because we've both seen them or you've seen far more of them than I have.
And I think this is only about a third of his IMDb page.
Yeah, just on the big. These are the thumbnails that we're going to be working with here. So let's just, you want to just jump right into it?
Sure. Sounds good.
Okay. And for all the angry fanboys out there that are going to be commenting, this is a ranking. This is our list. This is just our opinions. This is not, we're not saying that if you have a different opinion, you're wrong. I'm not saying that if you have a different opinion, you're wrong. So let's.
No, I don't think there's a single movie on this list that I would die on that hill. If you feel differently, you're welcome to your own opinion. Come at me that Phantom Menace is a good movie, and I will die on that
hill. So do you want to, let's see, you want to go chronological, reverse chronological? You want to just...
however you want to do it. Just pick a movie, and then I will...
I think it's going to be more fun. I think it's going to be more fun to just pick.
Okay.
So, let's see here. I'm going to start with 8mm.
Okay, 8mm. I would say it is a good movie. I enjoyed it. It was very dark.
Okay.
You know, I kind of feel like it's in the right spot, because I can't really say it was a good movie because of him.
Okay.
No, let's go with because of. I think he did a pretty good job in that one.
Okay.
There'll probably be a couple of movies where I'm going to say it's going to be good, you know, neither because of him nor necessarily in spite of him. Like, he didn't detract from it, but he didn't really contribute anything that made it stand out.
You know what? As we've been doing, as we just now started this, I realized there's another movie in here that's a Nick Cage movie that I've seen that you haven't seen.
I know exactly what one it is, too.
Snake Eyes.
Yep. You're the one that told me how, you've mentioned it because of when we get on the subject of trailers. That's one that you always bring up, just like I have a tendency to bring up Lord of War.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see here. Next one I'm going to do is The Rock.
So have you seen 8mm?
I have not seen 8mm.
Okay.
That was one of those movies that when it came out, I was like, ooh, that looks good. And I might actually see that in spite of the fact Nicolas Cage is starring in it. And then, you know, life happens and 10, 20 years go by and you didn't see it. So, like, is there something you want to spoil for me in 8mm?
He actually does an okay job.
Yeah, that was a surprising twist when you just now announced that to me.
I tell you right now, you got to make sure you're in the right mood. You know, I guess you want to call it a trigger warning, because it is dealing with snuff films.
So, movies where people are using smokeless tobacco,
no, wrong stuff. You know what I mean. So, I mean, it is dark subject matter. It's about, you know, basically he's a private detective that's hired to find a young girl, like 18, 19-year-old girl, who's disappeared, and she's got wrapped up in this whole world of snuff films. It's pretty dark, but it was pretty good. I enjoyed it.
Okay. So next up, we're talking about The Rock. And I do have my 2 cents to throw in here because this is one of the Nick Cage movies I have seen.
Again, I would probably say, yeah, I would call it it's a good movie. I wouldn't put it high on the list of good movies, but I mean, I enjoyed it. I would actually kind of go more in spite of. It was more because of Sean Connery than anything Nicolas Cage did in that movie that I liked.
Yeah, it's true. I don't feel like he did anything to detract from the quality of that film, but I feel like his character didn't add that much.
No.
You know, I wanted to put it in the good because of category just because he didn't fuck it up. But no.
Yeah, however you want to qualify that as is he didn't. I didn't feel like his thing really contributed to it, but it didn't detract from it either, as to whether or not it was a good movie.
Right.
I also have a slight nostalgia for it because that came out when I worked for a movie theater, and one of the things that we did at the movie theater, we got to preview the movies that were coming out on Thursday night. Because this was back before digital, so they still had to splice film reels together. So they had to preview it to make sure that it got spliced together in the right order. So they let all the employees come in and watch it. The same night that came out was the same day that the Phantom with Billy Zane came out, which was truly a bad movie. But there is the scene in the Rock where, with the god-awful one-liner, where he asks the guy, "Are you an Elton John fan? Because you're a rocket man," where he shoots the guy point blank with a rocket. There's a scene in The Phantom where a guy gets, it's set back like in the 20s. A guy gets shot point blank with a cannon. And I was like, man, there's like 2 scenes in one night. It's like the only good thing I remember from that, the Phantom. It was kind of a neat, well done scene where the guy winds up getting shot point blank with a cannon.
Yeah.
So always stays in my mind about the fact that it was like 2 different movies the same night with that same basic concept.
Two things come to mind. One is that I have fond nostalgia for the movie The Rock, and I will, I'm gonna tell this, and I'm gonna preface this with yes, I really am that old. So like I have a fondness for it because I remember it being one of the first movies that I got on VHS from the Columbia House Movie Club. Like there was The Rock, and there was Happy Gilmore, and there was a couple of other movies. I can't remember what the other ones were, but before Columbia House Movie Club folded, I got those movies. The other thing that comes to mind, I think you'll find this particularly funny considering that you often comment about how many movies I don't watch. I have seen The Phantom, the Billy Zane movie.
Because, I'm
sorry. Fortunately I didn't see it in the theater. I caught it on cable one day. But I did see it.
I'll be honest, I have not seen The Phantom. I have seen parts of The Phantom. I didn't.
Yeah, well, I mean, with that skin tight outfit Billy Zane was wearing, you saw a lot of parts of The Phantom.
But there was not everybody would want to see every movie that came out, so some people would hang out, and they would only do one at a time. So some people would just kind of hang out in the lobby until they would watch the next show. So I got up and walked out of it. I've always so I always say that there's only one movie I've ever walked out of, but I guess I should preface or change that to there's only one movie I paid for and walked out of, and not stayed and watched the whole movie, no matter how bad it was. If I'd actually paid for it, I probably would have sat through the whole thing because I paid for it. I'm going to watch it, even if I sat through Batman and Robin. I'm sure I could have made it through that. But since it was free, I just went and hung out with my friends in the lobby and then waited for The Rock to start next. So, quick side note, real quick. Interesting fan theory that makes The Rock an even better movie. It's an unofficial James Bond film because he plays a British spy that was caught on American soil that was held illegally. But you think about everything he pulls off. Think of him as if he was James Bond doing espionage on American soil. I think it makes it that just if you picture that as an unofficial Sean Connery reprising his role.
Yeah.
That makes it that much better. So
okay. Yeah, I agree. So we'll do next.
Ooh. That's got to go in bad movie.
Okay.
Like if we were going to get try to gauge by the the closer to the center, the farther out it is, the worse it is or better it is.
Yeah.
It would actually be pretty close to the line, but it would still just barely be under a good movie and into the bad movie. But because I enjoyed most of it, but it had some bad things.
Good movie with a bad ending, would you say?
Definitely. My friend that I went and saw it with absolutely hated it. It didn't bug me as much as it did him, but I completely understood what it is. So it's like an hour and 40 minutes, and probably the last hour of the movie was all a dream.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing is he can kind of see the future. So it's like, yeah, everything that was going on this thing. And the worst part is it's set up where he's like, okay, he can see, but he can only see so far, like 5-10 minutes. And then you have all this like hour long that in movie time, I think it's supposed to be most of a day, that all of a sudden his ability skyrocketed. I'm like, okay, if you're going to do the whole thing, have it build up where it lasts a little bit longer each time. Don't suddenly jump it, because then it feels like a total
Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think of. Thank you. Thanks to his performance, I don't know. I'm going to say it's another one kind of like The Rock, where his performance really didn't take anything away from it, but it didn't really add anything to it either. So you could put it on either one, either bad because of or in spite of.
Okay, so it just kind of stays there on the line.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which technically, if we're going to keep it on the line, then we should probably have The Rock on the line up there on good, because we both kind of said he didn't detract from it, but he didn't really add to it.
That's true. So I'm going to go ahead and
try and keep some consistency here.
Yeah. Let's see here. So let's see here. Let's do Bangkok Dangerous next.
Okay.
So the reason why I'm interested in this one, this is one, like, even though being sort of mostly anti Nick Cage, that I own this movie. Like, I was in a pawn shop and they had DVDs 50 cents, and I was like, oh, Bangkok Dangerous, that sounds interesting. And then I looked at the front cover. Oh, it's Nicolas Cage. For 50 cents, I'll buy it anyway. And so I have this movie, have not seen it, but I'm curious to know what you think of
it. Definitely a bad movie.
Okay.
I'll be honest, I haven't seen it since it first came out on video.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was a 90s movie. So it's been a couple decades.
Right.
I'm going to say, gosh, it's a hard, because he's in a lot of bad movies, and a lot of the time it's not his fault. It's just the writing is bad. So I think that's an in spite of one.
Okay.
I mean, it's not that he really contributed anything, but it was more that the writing of the whole storyline was what made that such a bad movie. I think
but it's not his fault. Okay. Yeah.
That's just another case of him picking a bad project.
Mm-hmm. Which, that was back when he was actually picking his projects based on what the project was and not what the dollar amount attached to it was.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Let's do this is a really divisive one. I mean, some people love it, some people hate it, some people are just meh about it. Con Air.
I am going to say a good movie. I love the movie. I am going to say in spite of him.
Oh, interesting.
I really, his southern accent is just horrible. I really feel like it would have been just as good of any movie, just as good a movie if a different actor was cast in his part.
Okay.
I'm not going to say any actor because I'm sure there are actors out there that could have done worse. But sure. I do feel like there have been a lot of other actors that would have done better than he did in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
I also really think that, and I don't know how much of this is his decision and how much of it is like costume design and all, but his look is just about as well chosen as his accent. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
But that being said, I really like the movie, and I think it was really good it's Powerhouse, and I might be slightly biased, but I am a huge Steve Buscemi fan, and I really loved his character because it's like, I don't know. I would love to see a movie just about his character. He was so creepy. He was so creepy in that. I'm like, I generally don't do horror films, so a movie about a serial killer doesn't really grip me.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the whole fact that everybody on that plane was creeped out by how horrible. I mean, he was like the Hannibal Lecter of that world. So I just think he was an interesting character. I'd like to see him, weird as it is.
The thing is, this falls into that category of what I was talking about a few episodes ago about movie reviewers, but really it's when you don't care enough to see a movie, so you want somebody to summarize the movie for you. This is one of those situations where I looked at it and I was like, oh yeah, Con Air, I think I've seen that. No, I saw somebody review it.
That's definitely one I would recommend. I've watched it several times. I guess you call it a guilty pleasure if you want. I mean, I generally think it's not a bad movie. Not one of those that it's bad, but I love it anyways. Not every, like you said, it's a divisive one. So some people may not agree with me about that. So, but even as someone who dislikes Nick Cage, I think he would probably enjoy the movie.
Yeah, it's not one of those situations where, when I watch the movie Carpool, unironically enjoy it and then go sit in a corner and mutter to myself about how much I hate myself. It's not one of those sorts of things.
Yeah.
I mean, you lived with me for a brief time. You would come home, I'd be sitting in a corner,
yeah.
Oh, damn Carpool. I can't believe I did it again.
Let's not talk about that.
The funny thing about that is it's not a joke. Adaptation.
Good movie. And I will say because of him.
Okay.
It's,
Good movie. It's Nick Cage.
It's a semi-autobiographical fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Like real person, false events. If you and he plays two people, twin brothers, both screenwriters. One a professional, one that's trying to break in and has no clue what he's doing. While the other one plays Charlie Kaufman, an actual screenwriter who's very well established, but was really struggling with a adaptation of a fictional novel in this movie. And I think he did a really good job. It was one of the few times I've actually seen a Nick Cage movie and really thought that Nick Cage did a good job. It's one of the few times where I'm like, because I don't know. Nick Cage to me is a lot like Adam Sandler in that I tend to think of him as a bad actor and that I don't like him. And then I go and look at his filmography and realize that I've enjoyed more of his films than I've hated. I just hate the ones that I dislike so much that it tends to overshadow the rest of his work.
By the way, folks, get used to this format because later we'll be in a later episode we'll be doing another one of these for Adam Sandler movies.
Okay.
you're deciding whether or not you're going to call in sick that day.
No, well, like I said, I mean, I tend to think of Adam Sandler as a bad actor.
Yeah.
I really don't necessarily enjoy his sense of humor that much. But I've actually, looking at all the films he starred in, I've actually enjoyed more of his films than I've hated.
Yeah.
The ones that I hate, I really, really hate. Though I will say, like most comedians, I kind of like his dramatic work a lot better than I do his comedic work.
Things like Punch Drunk Love.
I haven't had a chance to see all of it. I got interrupted and I never got a chance to finish it. But one that really sticks with me was Reign Over Me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Spoiler alert for a future episode. That one's going to be good because of. Okay, next one.
So getting back to Nicolas Cage, Peggy Sue Got Married.
Okay. So this one's a tough one for me because I've seen it, but I saw it when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So we're talking 30 years since I've seen this movie. I don't remember a whole lot of it. I would say my impressions, it's definitely a good movie. But I honestly couldn't tell you if I thought he contributed or so. We'll just leave it at it's not. I guess you could say inspired. Yeah, kind of right along the line there because I'm like, I can't really remember if it was good because of him or in spite of him.
Okay, so for our audio listeners, that's we're putting it in the good movie category, but not because of Nicolas Cage or in spite of Nicolas Cage, just right on the line.
Forewarning, there's going to be a couple of other movies that we talk about that it's been a long time since I've seen them. So they're going to probably wind up along the line like that too.
And I think that this is, I mean, I can't even say for sure that I've seen it. I'm pretty sure that I have seen it. And I'm pretty sure, again, yes, I am that old, that I think I saw it in the drive-in theater back in our old hometown. So, like, but again, I'm not sure that I saw it. I don't remember that much of it. But yeah, Raising Arizona.
Good movie because of.
Okay.
I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen it, but I do remember him and Holly Hunter really stood out as interesting characters, and the whole absurdity of it really worked. So it's also a Coen Brothers movie, so that helps for me too. It's one of their earlier films.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things where I knew that, and somewhere along the way I forgot that. But or we'll just say I never knew that, because that's probably just a safer bet. Honeymoon in Vegas.
Again, we're gonna put it right next to Peggy Sue Got Married.
Okay.
Because I remember it being a pretty good movie. I just don't really remember. I remember enjoying it when I saw it. I just don't really remember much about it. So I can't really honestly give a fair assessment on what he had to do with it, even though he was one of the main characters. I mean, I just remember enjoying it when I saw it.
Yeah. The only color commentary I have to add with regard to that movie is, the band UB40.
Yeah.
Which is a COD reggae group. They're a British band, but they do reggae sounding type music. That's called COD reggae. UB40, by the way, is the British unemployment form. That's why they're called UB40. Just because whenever they weren't getting gigs, they were on unemployment. But they originally recorded the song "Can't Help Falling in Love with You" for the soundtrack to Honeymoon in Vegas, and weren't picked for it. So there was a different COD reggae group that got their version of "Can't Help Falling in Love with You," and so because of that decision, there exists in the world two reggae versions of this Elvis Presley song, and it's just, I find that very bizarre. Anyway, let's see here. Wild at Heart.
Again, a lot of his early stuff I haven't seen in a long, long time. I'm going to say it's a David Lynch film, so it's always a little weird.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to put it in the good, and I think because of him. Because I really feel like, from what I remember of it, I couldn't really picture another actor in that part. And some people might see it and not call it a good movie, but I enjoyed it. And I'm iffy about David Lynch, so I can't really chalk it all up to being, it was a David Lynch film, so I automatically loved it.
Right.
There are a few directors that I'm very partial to, and I've enjoyed everything they've made. And then there are some that it's like a hit or miss. And then there was Tim Burton, who was everything they made up until a certain point. Then it was like, my God, can't you get anything right? Oh, good, it's good again. You had a slump there for a little while. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Okay. So this next one is going to be one of my favorite movies of all time. Let's just get into it. G-Force.
Not the one I was expecting. And I know you did it that way on purpose.
Yeah, I've actually never seen G-Force.
But
I want to force you to talk about it. I'm
going to say a bad movie, but it's a kids movie, and it's actually probably not bad for a kids movie, but
Yeah.
it was definitely not something I really got into. And I'm gonna say probably in spite of, because I honestly, until I went through the IMDb, I had forgotten he'd done a voice for it. When I think of that movie, I think of Steve Buscemi, and I want to say Alec Baldwin, but I know he was in that Cats and Dog movie, which was another animal spy thing.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm getting that confused. I just remember that Steve Buscemi did a voice in it, and since I only watched it because of that.
Yeah.
I had a phase where if he was in the movie, I was going to watch it, and not everything. As much as I love him as an actor, not everything he did is worth watching.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's mix it up. Let's do Willy's Wonderland.
Good because of him.
Okay. Yeah, this is so what I know of the film is that he doesn't talk until
Doesn't talk at all. Never says a line of dialogue.
Okay, doesn't talk at all in the movie.
No. He does sound effect, like he'll grunt or
so
make noises, but he never actually. Most of his communication is just like, or he'll give someone a look or something.
Right. Okay, so as someone who Nick Cage is known as being over the top, like that, like where he lives is over the top.
It goes to 11.
Yeah. Why don't you just make 10 a little bit louder? Nick Cage goes to 11.
Yeah.
So does that keep him from being over the top? Is he more subdued character in this movie?
No, actually, it's kind of weird because like he is kind of subdued, except for when he needs to go over the top, and then he still manages to be very expressive and very very much over the top. But for this type of film, it works, and it worked, in my opinion, works really well. I mean, that's actually one I think I might wind up buying. And like I said, I generally don't like horror films.
Mm-hmm.
And this is basically let's make a Five Nights at Freddy's movie without the actual franchise license.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't seen the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, but from everything I've heard, I'm fairly certain this one's a better one. Probably because they tried to take. There's this I would definitely call a horror comedy, and that's probably why I actually enjoyed it more so than the actual what Five Nights at Freddy's is supposed to be. Because from what I understand, they tried to really take themselves serious. Which honestly, giant killing animatronics, not exactly something that lends itself to serious horror. Creepy, yes. So it goes into horror comedy really well.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting thing about Five Nights at Freddy's, the actual video game. Scott Kaufman, who made the Five Nights at Freddy's video game series, he started off making a video game about bears and beavers that lived in a forest and cut down trees. That was the premise of the gameplay, and people said that his character designs looked plasticky and creepy, and so rather than just getting pissed off at that and never making another video game, he took those designs, refined them a bit, made them to be actually plastic looking and creepy, and like then started making Five Nights at Freddy's games.
Yeah.
I love that story because like he took the actionable part of the feedback and actually rolled with what people thought about the design rather than getting offended.
That's actually really admirable because most people would have just gotten upset and, excuse the term, but butthurt about the whole thing. Because they're not, and I'm sure most people who, well, I don't know, now that I think about it, the way people are, maybe not. I'm about to say most people were trying to give them constructive criticism, but
right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's an extra admirable and noteworthy thing of it is that he found the constructive part of what they were saying when it was probably not intended to be constructive, but just trolls trying to get on his bad side. And I think that it's, as far as the whole butthurt thing, I think that's especially true for indie devs because I don't know he was uh if he was just working on that first game by himself or whether he had a small team of people. But regardless, indie devs, well, especially when they're, burning the midnight oil and we're toiling day after day with no pay, just as a passion project, just trying to get something out there, and then people shit all over it. It's like, I can understand why people get especially upset in that situation, but that was an indie dev situation, and he didn't lose it.
yeah.
So, going back to our list of movies here, let's do something more current. Let's do The Retirement Plan.
I was just thinking about that one. I'm like, where do I want to put that? I actually enjoyed it, but I went in not really expecting a lot, and I got what I expected. So I really have to say it's probably a bad movie.
Okay. You weren't upset about it because you had already tempered your expectations. But
yeah,
if not for that, then you would have thought it was a bad movie.
Yeah, it looked interesting enough, but there was enough clues in the trailer that I am like, okay, this is probably not going to be a great movie. So I wasn't really disappointed from it. I think I will go ahead and leave it because of. I really don't think he gave that great a performance in it.
Okay. So
some of the things that it's hard to say, is it because of him when everything else is crappy also?
Yeah. That's why we have these movies sitting on the line. It's because it's hard to know if it was because of him or if it was like Next. Like we have him sitting on the line in the bad movie category for Next because Next was just a bad movie. It was bad writing, fairly good movie. It was bad ending, so it would have been classed as a bad movie if Nicolas Cage hadn't been
in it. Yeah, I thought it was an interesting premise. It was not executed well.
Okay.
But honestly, I could probably say the same thing for Retirement Plan. So.
Okay. So I'm going to jump in here and I'm going to do my one where I've seen it and Steven hasn't. So that's going to be The Weatherman. And so Weatherman falls into sort of a subgenre of Nicolas Cage movies that I think we're going to see more of as we go along. I have a feeling that like The Family Man and Trapped in Paradise and a few of these other movies, again, just looking at what I kind of think I remember from the trailers and what I'm seeing from the movie poster I think, fall into this kind of ho hum put upon man, which it very much is the weatherman. Like he's a guy who I think his character's name is Jim Spritz. Like his real last name is Spritzel, but like a manager talked him into changing it to Spritz at some point because he thought it'd sell better as a weatherman.
Yeah.
But it's like but people don't like him. They're like he's passable as a weatherman, but he's kind of he's got what I would call a very punchable face, and so so people like throw drinks at him when they're passing by in their cars and stuff like that. And his father, who's played by Michael Caine, is like some sort of big time poet or author or something, and so he never accomplished even a percentage of what his dad did, and he has a family that he doesn't like very much, a wife that he doesn't like very much, which I think, if I remember correctly, he's getting divorced. He's in the process of going through a divorce, and he has kids that he doesn't like very much, and so like nothing in his life makes him very satisfied. That's right. I do remember he was going through a divorce because there's this one storyline where he's learning archery because he decides he needs a hobby. And so he, like, at one point, he goes to his car and gets his bow and arrow and starts practicing archery very threateningly, like he's practicing to put an arrow through the new boyfriend. So there.
The more you describe it, the more I think I actually have seen this movie. I just didn't really remember it.
Don't take this away from me. God, this is all I have. No.
I'm sorry.
But so if you have seen the movie, then you can weigh in on my judgment on this. I'm gonna say that it's very depressing. It's like okay, so like how I feel about this movie is like you watch It's a Wonderful Life, and the first part of the story of George Bailey is really depressing and awful. And he like doesn't get to go away to college. He doesn't get to travel the world like he wanted. He doesn't get to become an architect. He has to stay in Shittsville and like run the savings and loan and do the whole thing. And then he marries Mary, and he finds a nice house, and then they settle down and they have a family. And so that's the good part of his life. But like, imagine if there was a movie that was only that depressing and upsetting first part of It's a Wonderful Life. That's kind of what this movie is to me. But that's its intent, I feel. The making you feel shitty like that is what the movie sets out to do. And so in that way, it's not a feel-good movie. It's a feel-bad movie. But it accomplishes its goal. And I think it does so very much because of Nicolas Cage. So I would put this as a good movie because of Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, I only vaguely remember it. It's just the more you describe, the more I'm like, I remember seeing that. It started when you started talking about Michael Caine. And I was like, oh, wait. And then, yeah, the archery. And no, actually what started was you said people throwing the drink on them as they drove by.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like,
now I'm wondering if you're just remembering the trailer.
Well, maybe it's possible that I haven't. I thought I've seen it with that, but maybe I am only just remembering the trailer. Because if that was all that was in the trailer, then
okay.
But
so let's see.
Here. So I'm going to let your. I'm all for letting your rating stand because I'm not.
Okay.
100% sure.
Excellent. Next, I'm going to go with Trapped in Paradise.
That's one I haven't seen in a long time. I am going to say it is a good movie. I enjoyed it. Uh, I feel like the reason why I enjoyed it was more because of John Lovitz and Dana Carvey.
Mm.
It was like three brothers that were basically criminals come to a small town during Christmas to pull off some sort of robbery, and
they're gonna rob Kevin McAllister's house.
No, I think it's to rob the bank or something, but they get trapped because of a snowstorm. And then he's the most straight-laced. The other two are like compulsive kleptomaniac type criminals. Like they can't help themselves. And he's more the straight guy. And of course he meets somebody and falls in love and wants to try to go straight kind of thing. I remember enjoying it, thinking it was funny. I'm going to put it in spite of, because I really don't feel like he contributed anything that made me like it.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that from your description, like most of what made it good was because of somebody else. Although from that description, it does kind of make me want to see that movie.
Yeah. It's very much like Con Air. I really, in the fact that I think I would have enjoyed it with another actor playing that part just as well.
Yeah. Which would explain why currently those are the two movies that we have over in that category.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to talk about some fast-paced action. I want to talk about Nicolas Cage driving a fast car. Let's do Drive Angry.
Bad movie. I'm going to say in spite of. I really don't think he did that bad a job with what he had to work with. A guy escapes from hell to save his daughter from a cult. And then the devil sends a demon after him to drag him back. So it's an action film where there's conflict between him and the demon, and then the cult that he's trying to rescue his daughter from.
It was a really weird time in the world, because I feel like, if I remember this correctly, like this came out between the first Ghost Rider movie and the second Ghost Rider movie, and it felt like he was starring in the reboot to Ghost Rider in a way. I mean, I didn't see it, but that was definitely the vibe I got from all of the marketing on this.
Yeah. I can definitely see it.
Well, so let's go ahead and talk about it. Let's go do the original Ghost Rider next.
I'm going to say bad movie. And I'm going to say because of. Not that
interesting.
He made it a bad movie. Many things made it a bad movie. I just don't feel like he didn't help it any at all. Like, he contributed to it being a bad movie. I think his performance was over the top and didn't quite feel right to me. I gotta admit, I'm not that familiar with the Johnny Blaze character. From the comics. I was actually more familiar with when they rebooted it with Danny something or other. So, but when the Johnny Blaze character showed up in the newer comics, it didn't really feel like the same character. And I don't know. I just didn't really think he fit the look. Much like, I think the whole idea of him playing Superman was just weird. Like, he's not how I pictured Superman to be. So, but then there was much, much more wrong with that movie. Especially, I would really want to call out the costume designer, because I thought the costumes on that movie were just horrible. Other than, and excuse my maleness, I do have to admit I did enjoy the continual cleavage shot of Eva Mendes, because like everything she wore was designed to show off her cleavage.
I just appreciate that you went ahead and took the bullet on that one, and keeps me from having to say it and get myself canceled. I'm
old enough that I don't care if I get canceled. Just remember that it's not going to help you any being associated with me.
Oh God. Let's see. Where's that camera off button? There we go. That's better. Now, so let's switch gears a little bit. Yeah, the Ghost Rider was one of the ones that I've seen also, and yeah, I think I concur. This one I don't know anything about though. Joe,
good because of him. It's definitely a more serious drama. Honestly, I haven't watched it in a couple of years. I've only watched it once. It was shortly after it first came out when I say that, it's once it came out on video, because I didn't see it in the theater. I don't remember much about it, but I have strong impressions in my mind that I thought he was really good in it, which surprised me because I watched it during a time when I really was thinking of him as a bad actor. And that I really enjoyed it. And he's very subdued in it. It's not his usual over the top. It's not a film you normally would think of when you think Nick Cage performance. Definitely not the guy in the center of the graph there, wide-eyed and crazy looking.
Yeah. Okay. So let's do City of Angels next.
Trying to be objective here to a little bit. I'm going to say it was a good movie. I have a fondness for romantic comedies, it's not really a romantic comedy because it wasn't a comedy, but it was a very romantic film, and I kind of have a soft spot for some of them. And it doesn't have a happy ending, which is ticks one of my boxes that I tend to enjoy movies that don't have happy endings, because happy endings are so Hollywood cliched. Everything's going to be fine in the end because it's a Hollywood film. That's how it's going to end. Well, no, not everything was fine. So for a unrealistic premise, it handled it realistically, in my opinion. It's actually a remake of, I believe, a French film from the 60s, 50s or 60s. I don't remember exactly when.
You'd have to tell me. I have no idea.
Yeah. but I think he had really good chemistry with Meg Ryan, and which is definitely important in this type of film. Too many of the romantic or romantic comedies, like your two leads, you just like you can't really get behind their romance because there's no chemistry between them. So yeah, I would say it was a good movie, and that it was that he did a good job. So I'm going to say because of him.
Okay. Switching gears, Kick-Ass.
Good movie in spite of.
Okay, interesting. Explain that one to me.
Honestly, I don't think he did anything wrong. He didn't detract from it, but I didn't really feel like he was all that particularly. Like I really kind of feel like like the other ones in spite of. I kind of feel like it would have been just as good with another actor in his part.
That's fair.
What I really think made the movie was Chloe Moretz. What is her name? I can't even. The girl that played Hit Girl. I can't think of her.
Just say Hit Girl. Yeah. That's basically what Nicolas Cage was there to do. He's like, hey, here's Hit Girl.
Yeah, and pretty much. I think she is what made that film work so well. Even than Aaron Thomas. Or doesn't he have three names too? The guy who played Kick-Ass. Yeah. I feel like I should. I feel like I should know their names, but for some reason, it's just not coming to me tonight.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so
moving on, I gotta admit, something about how I feel about Nicolas Cage. I mean, I'd really like to take his face off. Face Off. That's the next movie we're gonna talk about.
I'm gonna put a good movie because of.
Okay.
I mean, like thinking of it, I'm like the whole premise and everything is not a good movie. It's a very B movie premise, but his performance and why did his name just blank out of my mind? Oh my god.
Travolta.
Thank you, John Travolta. I cannot believe I forgot that. Who's another actor that I really don't think is that great of an actor. I've really enjoyed a lot of films he's been in, and in those particular films, I think he does a really good job. But in most of his films, I don't think he's that good of an actor, and especially a lot of his more modern work. But honestly, between the two of them, they do such a great job of establishing a character and then taking over that character to really make it believable that they're the other person once they've had their faces switched. So even though the fact that they have completely different body builds that are absolutely nothing alike, I think there's a major difference in height there, and just but their performances sell it. So that's the only reason why I'm going to say that it's a good movie. It was an enjoyable movie because of him and because of John Travolta. Honestly, if you took one of them away, I don't know replacing either one of those actors would have worked.
Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right. I think, thinking back to that time, it was a very B movie premise. And, I don't think anybody could have done it the way they did it, because it came out and everybody was talking about it. It was the way people don't talk about B movies. B movies are forgettable and stuff, but this like endured in people's minds, and it was part of the John Travolta renaissance. So it, like, it could it could have made or break. It was a make or break situation for him, and so fortunately, it was very much make. Yeah, people liked that movie, even though, again, with any two other actors, I don't think you could have pulled it off with that same level of success.
Yeah.
What I love about doing this, just little inside baseball for everybody, for you and for the audience, as a host, this is so much fun for me, because every time we go to another movie, I keep wanting to say, let's switch gears. Let's switch gears. Every single one of the, like, his catalog is so vast and disparate that it's like we're constantly switching gears. Like,
yeah.
It's hard to find two that are even similar, except for the ones that are sequels to one another.
Yeah, I gotta say, before we go any further, I just want to mention the fact that I want to throw a disclaimer out there. I'm noting that our good movies are outweighing our bad movies considerably. Again, it kind of boils down to the way his movies, you can pretty much tell which ones are really going to be bad from the get-go. So I've tended to avoid the ones that I know that I'm not going to like.
Right.
So I avoided a lot of his really bad movies because I knew they were going to be really bad.
Right. And that kind of goes into a conversation that we had off camera about the Adam Sandler.
Sandler.
That's the thing. I keep wanting to do Andy Samberg and Adam Sandler, and like the other times that we've talked about this off camera, you helped me out with that. But now, it's nice that this time you just left me to twist in the wind.
Sorry, well, I didn't realize where you were going, and once you said Sandberg, I was like, oh, Adam Sandler. So I didn't mean to leave you hanging. I told you before we started, I was tired tonight, so my cylinders aren't all firing. I missed the connection.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe if I said Adam like six or seven more times, it would have connected for you. But anyway, so the Adam Sandler episode that we're gonna do, like, same sort of thing. Like, I know that Jack and Jill and Little Nicky were going to be bombs, and then I hated every second of watching the trailer. So I avoided those movies. So that's going to color my impression of those movies somewhat, because I knew those were going to be bad and I avoided them.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that a lot of the bad movies I've seen were not movies I chose to watch. They were usually somebody else pretty much made me watch them. And that's in general. I mean, it's not a hard and fast rule, but in general, I can say that most of the bad movies, or movies I would consider bad, were movies that somebody else made me watch. Because I kind of had a sense, like, you can always tell when you see a movie, or if you think it's going to be bad or good by the trailer or preview. So you tend to edit, like, you're only going to go for movies that you think might be good. Very few people go out there going, oh, that looks god-awful, horrible, I'm going to hate it. I have to watch that. Yeah. There's a handful of them out there, and then everybody has those moments like, oh my god, that's god-awful bad. I have to see what this train wreck looks like.
Right. Is it really as bad as the trailer makes it look? So okay, going back to the list here, guarding Tess.
Good movie. I'm going to say because of, and that's only because the chemistry he had working off of Shirley MacLaine. Like, if somebody else was cast in her part, I don't think he would have been necessarily would have worked as well. They might have needed to cast somebody else in that. It's just he really bounced off her well. Or actually, I should say she bounced off of him well, because this isn't early in his career, so he's not Nick Cage. It's when he was more straight-laced. And he plays a straight-laced, normal Secret Service guy who's tasked with guarding the former First Lady, who is an annoying pain in the butt, who goes out of her way to be an annoying pain in the butt. But they kind of almost develop a mother-son relationship throughout it, and it was really good. And I really feel like his chemistry with her is what made it.
Okay. The Croods.
I'm going to say I enjoyed it, so I'm going to say good movie in spite of. Because honestly, I think somebody else could have voiced his part and been just as good.
Okay. Fair. It can happen to you. It could happen to you.
Again, I like that movie. Romantic comedy. Well, yeah, more romantic comedy. The comedy's downplayed in it, but it's there. I'll say in spite of. I mean, he did a good job in it. He just plays an everyday schlub cop. Chemistry wasn't too bad with Bridget Fonda, but honestly, I feel like somebody else could have played the part and it would have worked just as well. So, I mean, that's the running theme with the in spite of for me. It's not that he detracted from the film, but it was good anyways. It's always just been like he didn't really contribute to it. I was kind of, when we set this up in my mind, like when we were talking about doing this in my mind, I really pictured more of those in spite of was that he was bad, but the rest of the movie was really good. So, it would go in that category. I wasn't really expecting as many of them to be just the, the more I think about it, the more it's just somebody else could have been cast in that part.
You think of Nicolas Cage as being really good or really bad, but not being meh, which is really the worst thing you can be.
Yeah.
If you're good, then you're good. If you're bad, you can be so bad it's good. But if you're meh, that's going to be forgotten in T-minus 30 seconds.
To steal it from one of my favorite online reviewers, Jeremy Johns, kind of give him credit.
Yeah, I absolutely. I'm not trying to take his shtick. That, I am absolutely, quoting that because that's his bit. Okay, I really don't think I can hold back from doing this any longer. Gone in 60 seconds. So before you say anything else, one of my favorite movies of all time. This is absolutely one where I will, it doesn't matter where it is in the movie, I will sit down and I will watch that thing until the end of the closing credits.
Which I've always found extremely hilarious, considering how much you've told me you dislike Nick Cage as an actor. Yet one of your favorite films of all time happens to be one of his films.
Yeah, easily in my top 10. Easily.
So, I want to hear your. I think I know exactly. Well, yeah. I think I know where you'll put it, but I want to hear before I make my decision.
I've actually, been, as we've been setting this up the last couple of days, I've been going back and forth in my mind, because obviously it goes up at the top, good movie.
Yeah.
But is it because of, or is it in spite of? Because the movie does not contain that much Nicolas Cage. And at the same time, he doesn't go over the top, really. There's that one moment when they all have to get hyped up for the big job, and they're listening to Lowrider. That's that. Yeah, you get a little bit of that manic energy from Nick Cage in that point. And there's another spot where he's like, I'm a little tired, a little wired. I think I deserve a little bit of respect. Like that, you get a little bit of that manic energy there too, but it's just in those two little tiny bits, so it's not like distressing amounts of it. So I am, but I don't feel like his performance really detracts from the whole, and I think it contributes more than it could possibly detract. So I'm gonna say good movie because of Nicolas Cage.
I admit, I really expected it to go in spite of, just because of how much I know you dislike Nick Cage in general. But I fully agree. I enjoy that movie, and I honestly can't see anybody else in that part. I think he gave it just the right amount of energy, I guess to put it, to he felt believable as that character to me. And I've seen several movies where it's the former bad boy who was a criminal and is now trying to go straight and now get forced back into it because of whatever reason. And honestly, this actor, he's done the best job of that type of character that I've seen. So I agree with you wholeheartedly on that one.
Okay, good. Because it would be a shame for me to have to kill your feed, and then I don't know. I guess bring somebody else in to finish this list with me, because I still haven't seen a lot of these other movies. I wouldn't be able to do this on my own. But let's do Renfield.
Okay, that is definitely a good movie in my opinion, and I do believe that he contributed greatly to it. Between him and Nicholas Hoult, they played up the whole Renfield Dracula thing as a codependent relationship, with Dracula being the abuser, and it worked. It worked really well. There were aspects of the film that I thought were a little cheesy and a little bit over the top. The romance between Nicholas Hoult and Aquafina's character felt a little rushed. But I think the comedic, and it was definitely an out there Nicolas Cage performance, but I think it really needed it for that script and that film, and I think it worked really well. It's probably my favorite rendition of Dracula ever. And all the versions of movies I've seen it. I haven't seen every Dracula movie, but of all the Dracula movies I've seen, I do believe he's probably the best.
Okay. And and I think that raises an interesting point in that, there's a lot of movies that, do get kind of destroyed by a Nicolas Cage performance in the middle of it. But that kind of manic energy there is a point where it can work. If you have the right story, you have the right situation, the right director, etc. That kind of, I don't know if I think that if you tell him to turn it on full blast, he's going to destroy any movie. He's going to be just like, he's too much of a force of nature. I think but at the same time, I think that if you let him off the chain somewhat, but you're ready to reel him back in as soon as he gets too far, then it can work under a certain premise.
Yeah.
This is another one that I hadn't heard of before doing this project. Mom and Dad.
I actually enjoyed it. I'm going to say it was a good movie, and it was a because of. And it's another case of Nick Cage being Nick Cage actually contributing to the film, much like Renfield, where his manic energy really worked for it. And it's basically it's kind of a horror movie where
I kind of got that from the poster.
I don't remember exactly what the cause is, but something causes parents to go nuts and try to kill their kids.
Oh.
And then it's kind of like a survival thing where the kids are fighting off their mom and dad trying to stay alive.
Okay.
So it's I think
good and because of.
Yeah. I think for me, the hardest part about that movie was to accept it just seemed like normally like an age difference between an actor and his romantic lead and vice versa, an actress and her romantic lead, if, one being older than the other doesn't really bug me. I mean, I bought into that whole Hollywood BS for a long time. Not very many older women with a younger lead man. It's usually the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. I just found that a little hard to see the two of them. I can't remember the actress's name that played opposite him. But I just seeing them as a couple seemed a little weird to me. And it did kind of feel like the age difference is what made it feel weird to me. And I don't know why. I've never really felt that way about a movie.
Okay. So
probably should have.
Okay. So we've got a few movies with sequels, so we're just going to kind of clean that part of it up. So second Ghost Rider movie. Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance.
Because of a bad movie.
I thought so, because that's where you put the first one.
Yeah, and horrible. Only redeeming thing I found in the whole movie was one joke. There's a character who basically gets raised from the dead, and from that point on, whenever he touches something living, it decays from his touch. And he winds up finding, like, when he first gets sent after Ghost Rider, he steals an ambulance. And the ambulance driver had their lunch in the front, and he's starving, so he starts going through it. Every time he grabs something to go eat, it just immediately decays in his hand, so he can't eat it. And he's like, sandwich, and it falls apart. Apple decays and falls apart. Twinkie. And then he's able to eat it because nothing happens. So I thought that was kind of funny. It was a cheap joke, but I still thought it was fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, in Zombieland, they built a whole storyline around that.
Twinkies. And I will say the only other redeeming thing about that was Ghost Rider always had this thing about where it didn't matter what vehicle he chose the motorcycle, but whatever vehicle he could imbue any vehicle with the whole flaming spirit type thing.
Right.
and they really played up on that. And then I kind of felt like they did his penitent stare a lot better in that movie. But the rest of the movie, the performances and the story and the rest of the writing sucked. So,
Okay.
yeah. Crude's A New Life, or A New Age.
Welcome to a new age, to a new age. Welcome to a new age.
Yeah, you pretty much guessed where it's going.
Yeah, right here. Good movie in spite of, because that's where you put the last one.
Yeah, not always a guarantee the sequel is going to be the same as the first one, but
yeah. Speaking of which, we'll just do a twofer right here: National Treasure and National Treasure 2: Book of Secrets.
I enjoyed both of them. I'm going to say good, but I'm going to say in spite of. I really don't necessarily feel like it was his performance that made me like him. I just think I enjoyed the overall. I know that's a hard one for me to say. Because I keep trying to picture somebody else. I'm not sure if I could see somebody else in that part, but I don't really feel like.
I don't see any reason why somebody else couldn't play that part.
Yeah, probably. We'll just leave it there. That feels like the best spot for me.
What's amazing is that I didn't think I saw the second one until like just this moment. I remembered I did see the second one.
Yeah, the second one on that one was not as good as the first one. I mean,
yeah.
But then again, I guess we could say that about all the sequels on here. They're just, well, actually, I kind of enjoyed A New Age a little bit better than I did the first one on Crudes.
I mean, I never saw either one of them, but I remember seeing the first one just seemed like, oh, hey, we're cave people and we have to deal with cave people issues in this cave people time period. Okay. Big deal. It's like Ice Age, but with humans instead of animals. Maybe yes, maybe no. Doesn't matter. It seemed kind of like stuff I'd seen before, and so I wasn't interested in it. But A New Age, that trailer I remember grabbed me. It's like, okay, we've got other human beings, we've got culture clashes. I see where the conflict is here. This could be interesting. Still wasn't interested enough to go see it, but there seemed like there was a lot more meat on the bone there.
Well, that was definitely what I waited for it to come out to streaming, or I either saw it streaming or I checked it out from the library. I definitely didn't really pay any extra money for it. I think I got that one through the library. I don't think I did pay any money for it.
So what I'm getting from this is to set up the next one. Like what I'm getting from this, looking at this whole collage, is that it's amazing the different variety of properties and the different variety of studios he gets to work with, because like DreamWorks and Disney and independent smaller projects and big studios and all kinds of stuff. It's really amazing. And here's he's worked with Disney a bunch of times, and so here's another one, The Sorcerer's Apprentice.
I'm really starting to wonder if you're kind of psychic or something, because there'll be one of the ones that are left and I'll be thinking about it and looking at it. Next thing I know, that's the one you pick. I'm like, I don't know. Am I giving some sort of clue that I'm not realizing?
It's like in what is it? Malibu's Most Wanted. You're indicating.
I've never actually seen that movie.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a waste of a joke. There's somebody in the audience that's laughing their ass off right now at a joke you totally don't get. Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm not. You don't have a tell. I'm not going by that. It's just coincidence or psychic waves or whatever you want to call it. But Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Okay, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it specifically because, like, if anybody, it was not what I would call a good movie, but it was something that I really enjoyed, and it was because of uh, Nick Cage. If somebody else had played the part, I don't think it would have worked. Honestly, I think that should kind of go on the line between good and bad because
Okay, no, explain that to me. Explain that to me because you got the whole. It wasn't a good movie, but I enjoyed it. Like, what is that? How?
that's me acknowledging that there are a lot of flaws and it was a bad, overall, objectively, it's a bad movie. Most people you talk to will say it's a bad movie, but I enjoyed his performance so much that it made me overall enjoy the movie despite all of its flaws.
So on technical merit, as far as like how it's written, how the story's structured, things like that, you would say that it's a poorly made movie. But
Yes,
at the same time, you did enjoy it.
yes, I wound up enjoying it mostly because of him.
Okay. And I gotta say, this is another one where I saw the trailer and I was like, "Ooh," but I didn't go see it, and that may be because I just don't see that many movies, or it could be because
and,
I was because it was Nicolas Cage in it. I don't know.
And again, that's another case of where I say it's because of his over the top Nicolas Cage-ness that made me enjoy that movie. That's like I said, if somebody else had played the part, I don't think I would have liked it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just absolutely love that part where he's like, "Are you insane?" And he just kind of stops and thinks about it for a little bit, and then goes, "A little bit." That's kind of funny.
Let's see.
Because it wasn't like automatic. It was like he literally stopped to think about it for a second. Like, am I insane? Yeah, maybe just a little
bit. This one over here, is this Leaving Las Vegas?
No, that would be the one next to it. That one.
That's Leaving Las Vegas? Okay, what's this one?
Valley Girl.
Valley Girl. Okay, so let's do the Valley Girl next.
Oh, again, early in his career, I've seen it, but it's been a long time. I really don't remember if I liked it or not. I'm going to, from what vague impressions I have in my memory of it, I'm going to say it was a bad movie. And I'll say it was because of him, just because I don't really know where to put it, in all honesty. I mean, I guess you could put it on the line between because of it.
To be fair, since we don't know, I mean, you can go back and review it at some point and report back to us, and we'll make a mental note to change that. But really, since you don't remember one way or the other, we'll just leave it on the line.
I don't think I ever will. I don't really have much desire to go back and watch the movie.
You are going to go back and you're going to watch that movie, young man.
There's too many other movies I want to watch. I ain't got enough time. It's not like I'm going to live forever.
You got to eat your vegetables.
Yeah. I think that's more junk food than vegetable.
Yeah, but you don't want to do it. So metaphorically, it's vegetables. So let's see what we've got.
Well, I don't know. I mean, candy corn is junk food, and I don't want to eat that either.
Well, yeah, because you have taste buds.
I actually saw a photo of a sampler that had 4 different flavors of candy corn.
Yeah.
That's just disturbing to me. Leaving Las Vegas, I will say, is a good movie, and it is because of him.
Okay. Anything else to add?
Well, I do believe that's the one where he won an Oscar for his performance. So, I mean, I've tended to notice that, like Joe and Leaving Las Vegas, and I think I'm not sure, there might be another one down there that I was thinking of where he plays a more straight, serious performance, where it's a little more low key, and it's not just a kind of bland, generic character. I mean, he's got a developed character, but it's lower energy, works really well for him. And I like that. I mean, some of his, like some of the ones that I said were good movie, and he's played more straight lace. It's kind of bland, but it's works. These are more developed, but he's still straight lace. So I mean, I'm not explaining myself very well.
Yeah, you're not. So moving on, Wind Talkers.
Bad movie. Forgot about that one. And I would say because of, I didn't think he did the whole movie in and of itself was not a very good movie. It wasn't handled well. Wasn't well written.
It always sounded like a very interesting premise to me.
It was a very interesting premise because it was about World War II, where the Navajo Indian, they used their language to keep messages coded from the Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about how, the Native Americans really contributed to the war effort. They don't get a lot of acknowledgement. So, I mean, it was by John Woo, which is a director whom I really enjoy when he's doing a film in Hong Kong. His American stuff.
He's not doing a Mission Impossible movie.
When he's not doing an American-made film, there's only two he's done in America I've thought were worthwhile, and one of them is just because I'm kind of a fan of some of the actors, and it was an okay movie. It wasn't a great movie. It wasn't bad. Face Off is one of them, and the other one was not Hard Target. I can't even think of the name of the movie now. It had Christian Slater and John Travolta in
it. Broken Arrow?
Thank you, Broken Arrow. Hard Target was the Jean-Claude Van Damme one, which was just... Most people really like that one. I didn't care for it very much.
It's weird. It's weird. I knew earlier in the conversation when we were talking about Face Off, somehow, some way we were going to get around to mentioning Broken Arrow. I just knew it.
Uh-huh. And they were made about the same time. They were both made by John Woo, and they both had John Travolta.
Yeah. And we got there. So, let's see here. This is another one that I was not aware of, but I feel like just based on the movie poster has a very similar tone to The Weatherman, The Family Man.
Yeah. Guy basically kind of, it's one of those classic what ifs where, like, what if my life had went a different direction?
Mm-hmm.
So, he chose his girlfriend over his or chose his job over his girlfriend. Then one day wakes up married to her, and like his life having taken a completely different path, and he's just trying to reconcile it. Like, hey, this is what I could have had if I would have chosen her when I had the chance, because it was at crossroads where he could either go to the job or go with her and get married, but he chose the job. I enjoyed it. I'm going to say in spite of, because it's, again, like pretty much every other movie in the in spite of category, I really don't think, or I should say, I think pretty much it would have been just as good with another actor.
Okay. Season of the Witch.
Bad movie. I'm going to say in spite of, because I don't really think he did that bad with what little he had to work with, because he didn't have much to work with on that one.
Okay, so not that he didn't contribute much, and so therefore he was ineffectual, but just he did the best he could with what he had.
Right. I don't think anybody could have made that a good movie if another actor had been in that thought. So,
directed by Uwe Boll.
I don't think so, but
I was just thinking, you said, it's a movie that nobody could have made good. It sounds like Uwe Boll's stamp of quality. You're IMDbing it.
Yes, I am. No, it was not. It was bad enough that it made me question whether or not it was one of his films or not. A bunch of 14th century. It also had Ron Perlman in it, and I'm a huge fan of Ron Perlman. And it was a medieval fantasy about a group of knights that were sent to escort a witch from one place to another for a trial or something.
Uh-huh.
And basically her messing with them the whole way. I think the premise could have been interesting. I mean, at least if you have an interest in the whole fantasy genre, but definitely not handled well. It was not a good movie.
Okay. Good enough. So next one, Outsiders.
Good movie in spite of.
Okay.
And the reason why I say in spite of is that's one of his first movies. He actually has a very minor part, so he's barely in it.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't really contribute how good it is to him being in it.
Yeah.
Not that I think, honestly, I didn't even remember that he was in it. So you can't say that he contributed to it, but you can't really say he did a bad job because he's, in my opinion, he was not memorable in that film. I was just going through that. I was like, he was in The Outsiders? Okay, it's somewhat seen.
Amos and Andrew.
Bad movie because of. Though, in all fairness, I don't think anything was good about that movie. It wasn't written well. I don't think Samuel L. Jackson did a very good job. It was just not a good movie. Okay. But yes, I do think his performance contributed to it being a bad. He did a bad job with nothing to work with.
Yeah, okay. So, okay, I get you. Into the Spider-Verse.
Good movie, despite. In spite.
Oh, wait a minute. Good movie in spite of?
Yeah.
This is one of the movies I have seen, so I'm gonna need you to defend your answer there.
Well,
because I would say good movie because of.
Well, see, I honestly, while I thought he did an all right job, I don't really feel like somebody else couldn't have done just as good a job in that work.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, you feel free to disagree with me, but I just don't feel like while he did a good job with it, I really don't feel like somebody else could. Because like most of the ones where I would say because of, I really can't think of anybody else that would have done a good job in that part.
Right.
I kind of feel like there are other actors that would have done a really good job as the Spider Noir.
I think it's because I love that movie so much the way it is. It's hard for me to think of anybody else in, in those roles. Like I don't want, like, don't touch it, don't change a thing. It's perfect just the way it is. But I mean, especially Nick Cage's Spider Noir and John Mulaney as Spider Ham.
That one is untouchable. Nobody else could have played that part. That one, yeah, no, that's the thing I was totally thinking about after I said the whole thing about I think somebody else could have played the Spider Noir. On the other hand, I don't think anybody else could have played Spider Ham. So,
the thing is, you say this thing all the time about that you like comedic actors in dramatic roles.
Mm-hmm.
John Mulaney says that he's a stand-up comedian. I like for him to do anything that keeps him away from the stage and the microphone. Like anything John Mulaney wants to do that isn't stand-up comedy, I am in favor of. I like him when he's, on Broadway with Nick Kroll. I like him when he's doing voice acting for Spider Ham and in Into the Spider-Verse. I like that he's a writer on Seth Meyers' show. Like, absolutely, give that guy a job, keep him busy, keep him away from the stage, because I feel like he excels in all of those other things and is not good at being a stand-up comedian.
I don't know if I've actually ever seen any of his stand-up comedies. So
consider yourself lucky.
Well, my masochistic streak makes me have to actually go out and at least try to watch some of it just to see how bad he is and whether or not I agree with you.
There's this. What's funny about that is that I have this opinion of John Mulaney that as a comedian he's very mid, like if that. So and I've always held that opinion, but of course he's done his time, he's worked his way up through the ranks. So there's this movie that came out a few years ago. I never saw the movie. I just saw the trailer for it a couple times. It's about this guy who was trying to come up as a stand-up comedian, but he was a Christian comedian, so he was trying to not work blue, but he wasn't working the Christian comedy circuit. He was trying to just make it in the regular comedy circuit, working New York City and stuff. And so he was trying to come up at, and you have people like Ray Romano playing himself, but the earlier version of himself from before he got Everybody Loves Raymond. And so I remember specifically there's this one part where he's in the green room backstage before some show, and John Mulaney is there, and he's dressed up in his suit and everything, and the guy goes up to him, he's like, "Hey, I love you, I love your stuff." And John Mulaney goes, "Who the hell are you?" And I'm thinking, you got to be low on the totem pole to get that kind of shit from John Mulaney.
I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, I should have tracked down that movie. I should have seen it by now, but I didn't. But that always sticks with me. The whole like that guy was getting shit from John Mulaney.
I'll look it up later. But okay, getting down to the nitty gritty here.
Yeah, so I'm wanting to do these two on the outside, but I really can't remember what movies these posters are for.
All right.
This one.
Which one do you want to pick, and then I'll tell you what movie it is.
This one here on the left.
Okay, that is Kiss of Death.
Okay, Kiss of Death. Let's do that one next.
Okay.
Because I know which ones I want to end on.
And it's right there.
Okay. Bad because of.
Yes, it along with it was when David Caruso was first starting to get popular from, was it NYPD Blue?
Yeah.
Was the show he was on?
Yeah.
So it was his first attempt to make a foray into the movies from television, and it was a crime drama type thing. And I remember being like seeing the preview, thinking, "All right, this is going to be really good." And because I was, at least at the time, I was kind of really into those type of movies. And then, was severely disappointed. It was definitely a kiss of death. And Nick Cage plays the bad guy, and it was actually, I think, one of the first, some of his real early things like Vampire Kiss and Wild at Heart, he went a little overboard, but he had gotten kind of normal. This was when he first started to go back to the really Nick Cage, type stuff, and it was just like it was not right for that part. I don't think the movie was really that well written in general, but I don't think either one of them were right. Like they definitely didn't have charisma to play off each other. So like you really didn't care about who won. It's like they both sucked.
Oh.
So, yeah. I thought it was really bad.
Or root for the bad guy. You just root for no guy.
Yeah. So looks like you've moved another one up there, which is the unbearable weight of massive talent.
Oh yeah, unbearable weight of massive talent. Yeah.
Where he plays a semi-fictionalized version of himself.
Yeah.
And I would say that was a good movie. I really enjoyed it, and I think it was because of him.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way that could be a good movie in spite of him. Like,
I don't know. I was gonna say, like, I don't really have another example, because the only other movie I can think of where a actor or a person played themselves that was where they did a horrible job, which is, how do you screw up being yourself?
Right. Going back to Aerosmith.
Yeah.
Steven Tyler and
Be Cool.
Yeah, and then the example that I gave of Wild Hogs, where it was you had Paul Sr. from Orange County Choppers.
Yeah. But then that whole movie was not. There was like two redeemable things. The rest of the movie kind of sucked. So I guess you're right. There probably isn't a way for him to have been bad for it to still be good.
Yeah.
But is it Pedro Pascal? I think his name is.
Yeah.
He's the one from like the Mandalorian and was it Narcos? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And playing the drug dealer that because the whole thing is, he gets basically recruited by the CIA to infiltrate the private island of a drug dealer who's a huge Nick Cage fan to come, make an appearance at his birthday. And Nick Cage plays as he described it, a slightly more neurotic version of himself. But Pedro Pascal is really good in his part, and they play off each other real well. And I really, really enjoyed the movie. So
nice. So we've got two left, and so I'm gonna say Matchstick Men.
Once again, it's going to go up in a good movie, and I think he contributed to it being a good movie. He had really good chemistry with the other two actors.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's about a con man and his protege and then his daughter. So there's interpersonal conflicts as they're trying to make a living as con people. And it's kind of like he's been trying to teach this guy, and then now his daughter is coming in to kind of learn. And it's, of course, there's the attraction between the daughter and the protege, which causes conflict. And I just remember watching that movie, and it was during the period when where I generally thought that Nick Cage was a horrible actor, and I didn't acknowledge that I actually liked some of his movies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, kind of how I was with Adam Sandler for the longest time. So I was really surprised by how good he did in that film and how much I felt that the overall enjoyment was because of his performance.
It's time for another plug. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you stay tuned, keep up to date with the YouTube channel. Watch for that Adam Sandler episode.
It'll probably be shorter. He hasn't done as many movies as Nick Cage.
Doesn't owe as much money to the IRS.
Sure.
And so the last one on our list is Lord of War.
So this one's a hard one for me. I have a slight bias, and I've talked about it before in previous episodes when we talked about trailers and how that they can make a difference. Because this is fairly certain I told the story about how I took my mom to see it thinking it was a black comedy when it was a very serious drama. So it's really kind of colored my perception on it because of going in expecting one thing.
Yeah, we were having a discussion about trailer editing previously, and we talked about that movie.
I'm gonna go with, once I got past my initial discomfort over the whole situation, I didn't think it was a bad movie. So I will say it's a good movie. But again, I really don't necessarily think that it was him being in it was that important, that somebody else could have gave it a good a job. So I'm going to say in spite of. Interesting side note, when I was looking through his list of movies to see which ones that I had seen, I looked at his upcoming movies. He's got a sequel to Lord of War coming out.
Oh, interesting.
Of all the movies to have a legacy sequel,
Right.
Not one I would have expected.
Yeah.
But,
okay. So, well, we did it. We put all of them into categories. It's been a long time coming. I feel good about this. I feel good that that's off my mind. We finally have a definitive answer for all of this. Of course, again, this is our opinions, mostly Cassidy's opinion, but but this is just opinions. Opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one.
I would be really curious, just personally, and I don't expect us to ever actually follow this up in another episode, but just between me and you, I would be really curious for you to go back in and watch a lot of these movies and get where you would put some of these movies.
That's going to be easy to do because after this episode is done, I'm actually going to be saving this off of the website, and then we're putting together a Less Than Fresh website. I don't know. I can't promote it yet because it's still in the works. So I don't actually know what the URL is going to be for it. But once we have that website up, this will definitely be posted somewhere on the website. So it'll be easy to reference and easy to come back to in a later episode if we ever do decide to come back to it in a later episode. So we finished the chart out, and it's right at 2 hours that it took us to do all of that.
Okay. And so I'd lost a little track. How many of these have you actually seen?
I have seen The Weatherman, Face Off. I thought I had seen City of Angels, but no, I haven't. Let's see here. Gone in 60 Seconds, of course. Kick Ass, National Treasure 2, Ghost Rider. And I think that's it. Oh, Weatherman. I don't know if I said Weatherman.
Yeah, I think you said Weatherman. You've seen The Rock, though, haven't you?
Oh, yeah, The Rock, of course, because, owned it and still own it on VHS. Not bragging, just saying.
Well, I would say, just for quick reference, for you, I would definitely recommend that you see Joe. My brain stops. Willy's Wonderland. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why that isn't so right to me. Adaptation, Renfield, and Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Renfield was definitely one of the ones that I intended to see and just hadn't gotten around to it yet. For all the ones that you haven't seen, I would recommend that you watch The Weatherman.
But why didn't you put Snake Eyes up here?
Oh yeah, because I forgot about it. I didn't remember that that was a Nicolas Cage movie until after we already started taping the episode. But just as a sort of unpictured entry in the list here, Snake Eyes, I would have to put as a bad movie. I mean, the premise was not great. The best thing about it was that Gary Sinise was in it. Which, by the way, spoilers, Gary Sinise was the bad guy, and that's the thing they gave it away in the trailer. The Gary Sinise was the bad guy. But the thing, like everything was bad about that movie. The premise was bad. Some of the writing was bad. Nicolas Cage's, I would say it's bad in spite of not. I would say it's on the line because Nicolas Cage's acting was bad, but the rest of the movie was so shit that
he didn't really hurt it.
Right. So there was one scene. Okay, the whole thing takes place in a boxing arena. They're like at a boxing match in Las Vegas, and then there's a shooting that happens, and Nicolas Cage is the detective on the scene, and so it's all about this place that's been shut down as an active crime scene, and so you've got the arena, the boxing arena, and so you've got one entrance that they're looking at. So that entrance is in focus. And then they pan the shot. And they pan the shot. And they pan the shot. And they pan the shot over to this other entrance on the other side of the room. Okay, the thing is, they do all of that, but they never roll the focus. It stays, at the focal length that it's supposed to be for this. And, whoever the director of photography was thought they were being clever because by the time it gets over here, that's the focal length that it needs to be at in order to focus on this door over here. The thing is, the whole time they were panning out of focus, they made me fucking motion sick. So the writing was bad. The acting was bad. The premise, the story, the premise the whole story was built on was bad. The photography made me fucking nauseous. So there's again, aside from Gary Sinise, who always turns in a quality performance, there's nothing really redeeming about Snake Eyes.
I never really planned on watching it, but I definitely won't now.
I care too much about you to let you do that to yourself. I know you have a masochistic streak. I do too. we've talked about it. We have different tastes in what constitutes a bad movie or what constitutes a good bad movie. I would let you watch Carpool 5 times over before I would let you watch this movie once.
Well, unfortunately, I have already watched Carpool, so
yeah, that's why I said 5 times over, because I was pretty sure you had seen Carpool.
yeah, that's never going to happen. I would never do that to myself. Of course, like I said, if you're on the subject of Tom Arnold, it could be worse. It could be The Stupids.
Oh God, don't. I don't want to go back down that road.
Yeah. Well, I have a friend that's one of his favorite films, so
I know we've discussed it on the program.
Yeah, but you know me, I like to repeat myself.
You do. It's like your favorite hobby. That's funny. You said you like to repeat yourself, and the very next thing I said is, you do. Like, oh God. I hate myself sometimes. Okay. So that's it. The Nicolas Cage experiment is done. It's in the books. I'm extremely thrilled with this outcome. It's nice to have an idea like this and finally have it come to fruition. Anything that...
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to simply say I was actually kind of surprised with the outcome. Nicolas Cage is not one of those actors that I really think about as an actor who might like his films. And to see that of the films of his that I've seen, the ones that are way more that I would classify as films I enjoyed than films that I didn't. So, and
yeah,
it's always kind of surprising to me when there's somebody that I tend to think of as someone I don't really like, and then discover that actually I kind of really do like them.
Yeah, I still have it up on my other screen here, and to look at it, I expected, that a lot of, most of, if not all of, the movies were going to go in this lower quadrant where it's a bad movie because of Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
But no, between the movies that you've seen and the movies that I've seen, and of course, it's that self-preservation instinct that kicks in that keeps you from seeing the ones that just from from the trailer that you're not going to like.
I don't know. I still have that, masochistic / people saying it's so bad it's good. I'm like, I just can't bring myself, but I want to, some part of me still wants to watch Bad Cop, Port of New Orleans, the movie he did. It's like kind of a sequel to a movie, but it's not. It's not the same characters. It's vaguely similar premises, but completely different stories. So, but they used the name of the other movie for whatever, and it was like, I think it's called Bad Cop, Port of New Orleans, or Port of Call New Orleans.
Okay.
There. Pull it up real quick. But I heard so much about it because of its, him unleashed.
And while you're doing that, I just want to reiterate to the audience, if there's a movie that you expected to see on this list that isn't on this list, like, say, for example, Vampire's Kiss, it's just not there because neither one of us have seen it. This list only pertains to movies that we have seen. of course, Nicolas Cage movies that we have not seen, we cannot rate.
Yeah. I mean, we could, but we're already pretentious pricks as is, so
right.
Why make it worse?
Oh, we could do the whole thing of the critic. Just every time we pull up a movie poster, it stinks.
Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans. And apparently it's supposed to be where, like I said, where he's, like the director said, have fun. And he went full Nick Cage on it. And it's supposed to be so bad it's good, but I don't know. I'm nervous. Like that masochistic streak curiosity will kind of want to see it, but knowing how Nick Cage can be Nick Cage, I don't know if I want to see it.
Right. Right.
Anyways.
Okay. Well, awesome. So that's all the business I needed to take care of this evening. Is there anything that you'd like to say to the nice people? I know you want to tell them to watch more movies.
Invest more time in cinema observation.
And yeah, I'll leave it at that. There's nothing more that I can add that could make that any better. So for Less Than Fresh, a movie podcast, I'm Jasper.
And I'm Cassidy.
Hey, you did it at the beginning and the end. This is great. I can just have you do it yourself every time.
Oh no, that's way too much effort.
All right. Well, we'll take it on an episode by episode basis and see how we get on. Until next time, it's been a pleasure having you, ladies and gentlemen, and it's been a pleasure seeing you, my friend. You have a good night.
Have a good night.